The grand dining room glistened with chandeliers that scattered light across polished glasses and plates as if the entire hall had been dipped in gold. It was a gathering of power, wealth, and prestige, men in tailored suits, women in elegant dresses, their laughter echoing like music of privilege. Yet, in the midst of it all, a silence began to form around one table, a silence so sharp that it cut through the chatter of the evening. An elderly Japanese woman, draped in a black silk dress, her silver hair swept gracefully back, sat with trembling hands. Her eyes darted across the table, her lips moving, but her words were met with confused stares and awkward smiles. The powerful business leaders seated around her shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to notice, as if her presence was suddenly a burden rather than an honor. Nobody understood her, not her pain, not her language, not the story she carried. And in that silence, she looked smaller, lonelier, and heartbreakingly invisible. Before I take you further into this emotional journey, let me pause here for a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the simple truth that one act of compassion can change a life, then please take a second to like this video, share it with others, subscribe to Kindness Corner, and comment below. Your support helps spread stories of humanity that the world desperately needs to hear. The woman was a millionaire, though she carried herself with the humility of someone who had seen the rise and fall of fortunes. She had been invited as a guest of honor, yet now she sat isolated, like a forgotten shadow among towering egos. Her green jade ring gleamed on her finger, a family heirloom passed down for generations, a symbol of resilience and hope. Her fingers clutched it tightly as though drawing strength from her ancestors, but her voice faltered, caught in the vast barrier of language. She spoke Japanese, words flowing with urgency, but around her, faces hardened in polite confusion. Some shook their heads apologetically, others pretended to understand but looked away, embarrassed. It was a dinner meant to celebrate collaboration, yet in that moment, it revealed how quickly humanity could be lost in translation. At another table, a young waitress moved briskly between guests, balancing plates of porcelain with practiced grace. Her uniform was simple, black dress, white apron, hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, but her eyes carried stories of hardship. She worked double shifts not for ambition, but out of necessity. Her mother was ill, her younger brother in school, and every dollar she earned went toward keeping the fragile balance of their lives intact. She had learned long ago that wealth was not always wrapped in diamonds and silk, sometimes it was simply having enough to keep the lights on at night. Yet tonight, as she glanced toward the corner table, she noticed something that made her chest tighten, the elderly Japanese woman's eyes glistening with unshed tears, her lips trembling as she tried once more to make herself heard. The men beside her exchanged looks, one even sighing in irritation as though her struggle were an inconvenience. The woman lowered her gaze, ashamed, clutching her jade ring as if it could shield her from the humiliation of being unheard. That was when the waitress froze mid-step, her heart pulling her toward the table. Memories stirred within her, memories of long nights when her mother would whisper lullabies in Japanese, stories of courage and perseverance that had been passed down through generations. Though she had grown up in another land, her mother's tongue had never left her soul. And in that instant, the waitress knew she could not stay silent. She approached carefully, her hands trembling not from fear of losing balance, but from the weight of what she was about to do. Bending slightly, she leaned close to the woman, her voice soft yet steady, and whispered in Japanese. The moment the words reached the woman's ears, her head lifted sharply, her eyes widening in disbelief. The tears that had been trapped finally fell, but now they flowed with relief rather than sorrow. She clutched the waitress's hand as if holding onto a lifeline. The room fell into stunned silence. The businessmen and women, who only moments ago had been too important to care, now watched with their mouths parted, as though a miracle had unfolded before their very eyes. The woman began speaking rapidly in Japanese, her words carrying the weight of years of silence, and the waitress listened intently, nodding, answering, comforting. The wall that had made her invisible shattered in an instant, replaced by a bridge built on shared language and compassion. As the waitress translated softly, the truth emerged. The woman had not come to flaunt her wealth, nor to boast of her success. She had come to share her story, a story of survival, of building an empire after losing everything in war, of raising children alone, of carrying the traditions of her homeland across oceans. She wanted to offer her wisdom, to invest in the dreams of others, but her words had been locked away by language until now. And it was the waitress, the one overlooked by everyone else in that glittering room, who unlocked them. One man at the table cleared his throat awkwardly, suddenly ashamed of how he had dismissed her. Another woman dabbed her eyes with a napkin, realizing how blind she had been to the humanity before her. The wealthy and powerful, for all their status, had been humbled by the simple act of kindness from a young woman who had nothing to give but her heart and her voice. The elderly woman's gratitude poured out in trembling words, thanking the waitress for restoring her dignity, for making her feel human again. She reached for her jade ring, sliding it gently from her finger, and pressed it into the waitress's palm. The waitress shook her head, refusing, but the woman's grip was firm. The ring was not just a gift, it was a symbol, a reminder that compassion held more value than any fortune. As the dinner continued, the atmosphere transformed. Where there had been distance, there was now warmth. Where there had been silence, there was laughter and shared stories. The waitress continued to translate, her presence no longer invisible but central. She had bridged two worlds, reminding everyone that language of kindness was universal. But beyond the glitter of that evening, her life began to change. The woman insisted on meeting her family, offering to pay for her mother's treatment, ensuring her brother's education was secured. The waitress, who had spent her life carrying burdens alone, now found that someone had chosen to carry them with her. And all because she had chosen, in one fragile moment, to whisper words that no one else could. Life is filled with these hidden intersections, moments when the world tests whether we will turn away or lean closer, whether we will ignore someone's pain or choose to see it. And sometimes, it is not the wealthy or the powerful who change lives, but the ordinary souls who choose to act with extraordinary kindness. As the story of that night spread, it left behind a trail of reflection. People spoke not of the fine wine or the luxury of the dinner, but of the waitress and the millionaire woman whose souls had touched through language and compassion. And those who had once looked at the waitress as merely part of the background began to see her as something more, a reminder that greatness is not measured by status, but by the courage to step forward when others remain still. If this story has touched your heart today, I ask you once more to take a moment, like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder of kindness, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so you never miss a story that restores faith in humanity. Your small action helps us continue telling stories that inspire and heal. And before we close, I want to make a special request. Comment below and tell us, have you ever witnessed a moment when kindness broke barriers that nothing else could? Your stories matter, and sharing them spreads the light further. As the night ended and the guests departed, the elderly woman walked hand in hand with the waitress, her jade ring glimmering faintly on the young woman's finger. They were from different worlds, different generations, yet in that moment, they were bound by something far stronger than wealth or power. They were bound by the unshakable truth that kindness, spoken in any language, can heal the deepest loneliness. And so, under the golden chandeliers of that grand hall, a waitress and a millionaire reminded the world of something it too easily forgets: humanity begins not with wealth or words, but with the courage to see and the kindness to understand.